Yeah. So I will give you an introduction though to what the idea of the role is. So what has happened for you guys is this company is in trouble. It is going that yesterday, your fearless leader, Bob Mason. Did you guys watch Rocky and Bullwinkle when you were younger? Did you watch Rocky and Bullwinkle? You may not be quite old enough.
Yeah, I did.
I did.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Fearless leader.
I thought Yosemite Sam might be a better example.
Anyway, so Bob called you in yesterday and said, we're in trouble. And we have to cut expenditures. And each one of you was sent out for the day to figure out how to cut $100,000 out of your annual expenditures for the business.
So the total business or each one?
Your part of the business. So that's probably 10 to 30% of your budget, depending on the size of your team, but each group is supposed to cut the same amount. You can decide what your budget is, what your scenario is. This is a role play, so you make up shit. Okay? One thing I will you need to keep in mind is in this kind of scenario, there's usually at least one person who's kind of happy about it. One person who says, I've been trying to tell the boss that we needed to cut back for years.
CFO.
Finally, he's paying
The
attention.
CFO or the consultant?
Usually the CFO.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not the CFO. So you could take that role on if you prefer. You decide. I'm just putting that out there. So disaster ensues in that day. The environment in this company, think Henry VIII's court.
Heads.
Political intrigue, people trying to win favor of the leader, people looking over their shoulder all the time. How do I position myself? This is not a happy company. No one, you might trust this person a little bit, that person a little bit. I'm not sure. Don't know where anything's going. And so this is the next day, because that did not happen. Some people came up with something, they weren't very good, and so this is the next day. And then Bob will start the scenario.
I'll give you a moment to think about it, I guess.
Yeah.
So we're having a joint meeting, is that the case?
Yes, we're having a meeting.
And we're being asked to
He'll tell you what.
correct him?
You were already asked to cut, let me say, 100,000 from your budget.
Right. And there's Ed.
Now we're going
Yay.
to figure out how you're going to do that.
Well, we waited a little bit because a couple of people.
Everybody change the subject, stop talking about it. No, but it was a great story. I
So Ed, we have an organizational development person in our team, because I shared with you Ed yesterday what I was going to do. So he's a little ahead. The scenario we're picking is everybody has to cut $100,000 from their budget. This happened yesterday.
Hold on.
Okay, great.
Okay, Ray, I'm glad you're here. Don't leave, I need to talk to you before you go.
Okay.
You didn't say that when I walked in.
And I'm glad you're here.
Because I'm just going to recommend we fire Ed.
Did you guys sign in?
That takes care of.
Last guy in the meeting, you're out.
You won't need to.
Okie dokie.
Over here for.
There we go. You have your own pen.
Well, we do this military way. The first thing we need to do is get a room full of people who have no idea what's going on and no dog in the fight.
Right.
Yeah.
And let them make decisions.
All right.
Sorry, sour grapes.
So I'll say it again. You all are leadership roles in an organization that is in trouble. Yesterday, the CEO, Bob, called you in to say you have to cut $100,000 out of your program's budget. But that could be anywhere from 10 to 30% of your entire budget, depending on the size of your program, right? You're part of it. It's not a program. Your department, your purview. We have the chief financial officer. We have the HR. We have CEO. We have COO. Thank you. We have lawyer. And we have organizational development person. You guys get to pick a role. We have IT left, that's one role. And marketing is another role.
IT.
There you go.
IT. So the lawyer doesn't get to be a lawyer.
Yeah, that would be more interesting to
Do
know.
something else.
Excuse me.
What's that? I know that. That's scary.
She's, I know she's late. Thanks for coming. So glad to see you. Okay, so that happened yesterday. The CEO said you have to cut this money out of your budget and you need to give me a plan by the end of the day. And it didn't go well. You didn't have any information. This is, think King Henry VIII's court. This is a place of intrigue and backstabbing and vying for the favor of leadership, right? Which is primarily the CEO. This is not a place that you guys feel safe. But some of you, but some of you get off on that. So it doesn't matter, right? Some people don't need to feel safe to enjoy their work, right?
Yeah. And enjoy making others not feel safe.
Right. And now that was, like I said, disaster because most people don't like that kind of environment. And it didn't go well. We didn't get all the plans in. Some plans came in, but they weren't very good. And so the CEO has called another meeting. And that's what we're here for now. So each of you, Don included, has some kind of a leadership role within the organization. We have our, I'm going to go through it again, see if I can remember everybody. Oh, wow. Okay. We are still going.
11:30.
It was supposed to start at 11:30, people.
Sorry.
Okay.
A 15-yard penalty from being late.
Like Dave.
Nice of you.
Okay.
And we'll let it-
That's fine.
Get one?
I brought Kleenex in case people start crying.
I need this guy. All right.
The CEO has called a meeting today because yesterday he called each of you who are in his leadership team in to say you have to slash $100,000 out of your budget. That could be 10 to 30% of your budget. It didn't go well. You were supposed to get that into him by the end of the day yesterday. It didn't happen. He's called another meeting today. We are doing a role play. Think of what role you want to be. We have some people already assigned. We have our chief financial officer. We have our human resources. We have our CEO. We have our, I can't remember which.
COO.
COO. And did you pick one yet, Ed?
I didn't. Do we have any idea what this company does?
This company does what, Bob?
This company manufactures widgets.
Widgets. It's a manufacturing company.
Yes.
It's a manufacturing company.
Very high value, nobody.
Very high value.
Widgets.
Okay.
All these, do we have sales?
Sales, you could be sales.
Sales.
Wait, do we have a marketing
Gotta sell
person
it.
yet?
Marketing.
You're do marketing. We have legal counsel, and we have IT. and we have organizational development, and you guys need to choose a role.
Well,
Regulatory affairs.
well, I think the hardest thing, so I'll do it, would be HR.
We already have an HR.
You already have an HR?
We have
Oh.
legal, you can be.
All right.
Yeah, legal.
Who was HR again?
Right.
Oh, you are. But you know what? You guys can be a team. That's fine.
Okay.
You can both be HR.
Because that's gonna be where you're gonna have to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You're absolutely right. So call on your own experiences with businesses that are in this kind of situation. And the CEO is now going to start the meeting for the next day.
All right, people. We told you yesterday you got to cut some money. Who's got the ideas?
Well, you know, Bob, I have already gone out and renegotiated several contracts and found at least $100,000 in negotiated savings.
Very
So
good.
my department's good.
Well, somebody took this seriously. What about the rest of you?
You know, I'm operations. I'm the whole reason that this company has money in the first place. I can't cut anything. In fact, I need more.
Well, actually, I think that there's a way that we can retool the way the widgets are constructed that would make an awful lot of difference, because I've talked to a lot of the guys down there and they said, you know, this is just not working the way it should. And we could probably save a lot of money by doing that.
You know what, I'll be researching development, no one's doing that.
R&D.
Now, when it comes to marketing, we can actually save a lot of money, and since we have this cut, we can utilize marketing online, the internet, through, Google and that kind of, we can use a lot of social media, so we can really advertise through that. But we can also look at partnerships, so that we can compete with other
Is that going to save us money?
Huh?
Is that going to save us money?
Yes, it'll save.
It'll save us money, okay.
Yeah.
So we got two of you that were listening. What about the rest of it?
Well, I've
And
got,
by the way, we're not here to restructure the company. We're here to save some money. What?
let's talk about compensation a little bit.
You want to redo yours?
Well, there's, we may have to spread it around among senior management.
The rest of you,
There's a
yeah.
profit sharing plan that we've been paying in the past. Well, this year we may not pay it unless we see certain performance objectives. So we may have to redefine quality, performance.
This doesn't affect me, does it?
What
It could.
what percentage of the net revenue or gross revenue or whatever is this cut?
So the cut is $100,000 per leadership person,
Per department.
but your department could be anywhere between 10 and 30% of your budget. So it's not fair. I mean, it's not like saying everybody has to cross this much across the board. It's by the number as opposed to the percentage. So, and also remember, this is a cutthroat organization. You are not trusting each other. This is Henry VIII's court. Remember what that's like.
And I got
So if y'all don't
Okay.
perform, each one of you have a 5% pay cut out of your.
Hey, dude, I have already more than met my goal here. I ought to get a bonus. I ought to get a percentage of what I just saved as a bonus.
Well, you were doing really well up till right now.
Well,
But at least she understands.
I'm sorry, I have now done more than my job, and now
Maria, you
I'm
have
punished for
something
that.
All right.
I guess my department, I had planned to replace a lot of equipment. I guess we can forego and make do with what we have right now. But what I think we can do is cut some of these training programs. That's obvious to me. It's just cut those out. So I think you should pony up some.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't say that I wasn't ponying up, and I do have a really good idea for how we can restructure how the widgets are created, which is actually going to save us a great amount of money.
Speaking of that,
I mean, of course, if you don't have any, and my sales team has been real effective, but I've figured out a way to reduce their compensation and bonus structure to come up with that money. Whether that'll keep them motivated to make their sales objectives.
I don't know. Can we do like Glenn Ross here, and the first prize winner gets to keep their job?
There you go.
Just gets cut, that would save $100,000 right there.
I think that's where HR and I can come up with ways of motivating them.
So if you motivate them, we can cut this out.
Incentives.
Bonus incentive structure.
Incentives.
The month club.
Obviously, I can't get y'all together on all this. And so a person that I talk with a lot has recommended that I bring in somebody else to try to facilitate this meeting and try to get y'all to work together, because obviously I'm not doing that very well.
But that's going to cost money.
Well, just hush. It'll come out of your budget, don't worry about it. And so I brought in Ann, excuse me, Ann deLain Clark, who is going to facilitate this meeting now, and maybe she can get y'all to do something, because obviously I can't.
You're not
I do like
using
your
the
idea. I think
skills
you should
of your
cut your
people,
conversation.
actually.
Well, thank you
Go ahead.
for inviting me to come and participate in your organization. I've been listening to the plans that each of you come up with, and you all sound very confident and ready to go. But I'm curious as to what's really going on in each of your areas. So I have this chart here. It represents a continuum of where you are in terms of trust. When you're over here at this far end back here, that's where we're in self-protection mode. I heard a lot of things. It sounded like some people might be in that place. As we move up and become more trusting, there we are resistor. That means you don't like change. As you move up beyond that, you're skeptic. Well, maybe I could deal with change, but I am really not sure about what this is. Wait and see is I need to know more information. Experimenter means I've got some ideas and I think I might be able to do something. Co-creator means I really know that we can make this work and we can come together. So I'd like to know, I'm going to do a poll, or I'm going to ask you just to participate and tell me where you are on this spectrum
As individuals?
as individuals.
I was thinking experimenter in terms of, I was thinking as a marketer, I would want to reanalyze the relationships that we have now for manufacturing. For example, see what contracts the company has to see, okay, what market is left unfound? Where can we increase our market for our widgets? And so
you're thinking
I'm looking-
experimenter.
Yeah, doing some research and figuring out, experimenting and problem solving. But I first need to analyze the current contracts that we have now with what companies, and then see what other revenue what other relationships we can develop with other companies in order to sell our widgets.
Thank you. Anyone else? Where are you?
Well, on the HR, on the compensation, possibly in the profit sharing or what have you, it is a wait and see, because this is a holistic plan that we're trying to implement across the various departments of the company. And I don't want all the savings to come out of my department. I want everybody to contribute to this. So.
And you feel you're at wait and see?
Well, we need to write, I need the staff to write up the performance objectives that would be passed down to senior management. And if they don't meet the objectives, then their profit sharing may be cut. So that would be my contribution to this project.
It actually also sounds like you might be a little bit in the skeptic. You might be between wait and see and skeptic.
Well, we don't know what the other departments are going to come up with yet.
Right, so
Once
you're
again,
You waiting for that.
I'm waiting to see what the total plan is, the holistic plan.
Sounds
Okay,
like
thank
he's
you.
in self-protection.
It could be. Yes.
Well, I'm skeptical I can cut any money, because everything I've heard so far from everybody is more work for me and my people. Because what I've heard
I'm okay with
is, oh, let's review contracts. Well, who's gonna do that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
the
the
legal
attorney.
departments, okay? I've heard, let's get some new contracts, going, some new partnerships going, okay? What do you think that involves, okay? That's more work for me. I've heard, if we're gonna cut, staff, employees, don't think, that isn't gonna cause any potential lawsuits that I gotta go deal with. Or renegotiation of bonuses. Come on, we've already got the program. We've already got the 5-year bonuses. What, we're gonna say, oh, sorry, we're not doing that well this year. We're gonna unilaterally renegotiate our bonuses? I'm screwed. And those IT, those IT upgrades are absolutely critical. We've got 30% of our people still using Windows 7. I think we had budgeted to get off that, okay? And it's a security nightmare that poses risk. And when that comes back to bite us, what are we gonna say? Oh, we didn't know Windows 7 wasn't supported? No, I've got a lot of work to do, and there are some things that we just can't put off.
Here's,
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, Don.
in terms of the research and development, I count me as skeptic because, we make very high-end widgets, and our whole market position is based on being cutting edge. If we start, getting rid of people in our research and development department, they're going to go work for someone else. And it would be a short-term, just like sticking your thumb in the dike. We're just creating a problem long-term for our company by solving a very short-term. Maybe we should think about a line of credit or something else to get us through this. Because if we don't fix the IT, if we don't do the other things, we should come up with a way of growing that recognizes, we need to have controls on how we spend money. But if we just do a across-the-board cut like this, we're really going to, I think, we're being penny wise and pound foolish.
Thank you. Yes.
Now, as a CEO, I'm over here on your I side. Maybe a resistor, I don't know. Because my biggest concern is I got the board and the stockholders breathing down my neck. And my number one concern is my job. And so I don't really care what your concerns are in the legal department or your new ideas for building widgets. My concern, because I'm obviously not very forward thinking, all right? My concern is that I'm going to lose my job and I don't like that. So I'm kind of resistant to all of this until somebody says, like Kelly did, I can cut this much money. That's what I want to hear. And that's all. And I've worked for people like this. All right. So I understand that. But so I'm going to be way over there as a CEO because I don't really care about all this discussion. I just want it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in the same skeptic area. We just hired some top sales people away from our competitors. We have promised them another 25% additional compensation from where we took them. But if I have to renegotiate those people, contracts and those bonuses, we're probably could lose some of our top producing salespeople, which is going to obviously reduce the amount that we're selling. And
can I ask our lawyer something? If we renegotiate our bonuses, does that get rid of our covenants not to compete?
No, hell no.
We brought people
They're going to say, you didn't give me my bonus, okay? You have violated our contract. I am not bound by our contract, and I'm out of here.
And they're going to go compete with us, right?
Absolutely.
Good. Mr. CEO, I think that, if you do this, you're going to lose your job next year, not this year.
Oh.
So,
That gives them just a whole nother year to find another job.
Yeah.
So, bird in hand.
Okay, so Maria, where are you?
I am skeptic. Don't know how all this is gonna actually work out how
How you're gonna get it done.
how we're gonna get started.
And Ed, you already said you were a
Resistor.
resistor. And Bob said he was resistor. And Richard, did you already
I was
say?
between wait and see and skeptic.
Oh, wait and see that.
Yeah, really, yeah.
You were one of the first. And Kelly?
I would throw myself in the skeptic camp, if only because I already got it done. So, but I'm less sure that the rest of them can get it done. You know, I'm all about the numbers, so I know where the fat is, I know where I can trim, but I don't want my compensation being cut because I did my job, right?
Right.
I've done my job, so I expect my compensation to be there.
Jacqueline?
I am in two spots. I'm an experimenter because I can see that if we work with the people actually creating the widgets, that there's a better way of actually setting things up so that it's be more efficient and can be done quicker, faster, and with greater quality. I'm also a skeptic because I don't know that Buddy over here is
Actually, that was one of my resistor points. I'm asking for more money,
Yeah.
but is it a bluff or is it because I'm an overspender?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, don't cut my department.
Where are you?
Well, I came in a little late, so I don't understand the whole framework, but I have gotten through close to 50 years in business by being the high trust.
Being the high trust.
I just give everybody enough rope for them to hang themselves. I just always trust everyone until they show they're not worthy of the trust. And in general, I've always felt that if I had good people, that they wouldn't allow themselves to be overpaid.
Wow. Oh,
That's
I
interesting.
didn't exist.
I've never been in a situation to make that decision.
Would you like to participate in the role? This is a role play. So each of these people are leaders within the organization. And yesterday they were told to cut $100,000 from their unit budget. And it was a disaster. They were supposed to come up with a plan by the end of the day. And they didn't. Or some did, but they weren't.
Except for Kelly.
And so the CEO, who is Bob, called everybody back together again today to talk about it again, but now you have an outside facilitator.
All right. Where on that spectrum do you
Yeah.
think you are?
And this organization, think Henry VIII's court. This is not a happy place, except for people who like that kind of intrigue.
You're asking me where I fit in
this, what do you think your attitude would be at this moment? Being in that play and thinking about that
I'm a protocol creator.
You think you'd be over here? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to ask you each to remind me again which place you are. But I want you to think about what is it, because here is where we get the least amount of work done. We're in I. We already had one person actually recommend that he has found great productivity when they're over here at this end of the spectrum. But it's important to know that your organization is there to support you. That's what helps you get over here. So I don't know anything about your organization other than I got called in for this, but I'm here to help you figure out how you can get over to this position over here where you're ready to, you may not get all the way over here, but if you can get at least into this experimenter range or just a little bit past the wait and see, you're on the right track. That's the goal. So I want to hear from you each on what it is you'd like to hear. And this is more about what kind of support do you need? What kind of engagement do you need in the organization that will help you open up your trust and move further to the right? Yes.
So, I'm just concerned that all these suggestions, changing our process, what's OSHA gonna, need a review for that, and product liability and all the things that go with it. I'm just concerned that there's a lot of risk with the change that people are suggesting to react to this budget cutting. So if we're okay with that risk, and I don't do these things that would need to be done to support that, then fine, let's move on, and when it bites us in the butt, don't be surprised. Alternatively, what we could do is we could just get tight on, for example, contracts and partnerships, and be less flexible and say, look, this is our partnership agreement. Don't ask for renegotiation. Sign it or don't. And I realize that limits, who we can partner with and how, with respect to bonuses and compensation. It's just, this is it. I agree, I acknowledge that I agreed to this bonus arrangement, and I accept this one. Take it or leave it. If we can do either of those, then yeah, I might be able to move ahead with at least the budget I'm spending now and not require more.
So what I'm hearing is for more trust, you would like things more well-defined, limited possibilities.
And that's what I'm offering is either increased risk or less flexibility. That's all
So
I can give you.
increased risk tolerance, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
Okay, or less flexibility, which would reduce the potential risk, because that's reflective of
That's correct.
the low risk tolerance. And Marina?
And, as a person that's constantly trying to be creative, and with marketing, you have to be creative. As I had mentioned, my plan, which I had already set out, was that, we can save money on marketing by turning to social media and other avenues. And then, like I said, looking at the market that we haven't established yet. However, what I would need is, instead of people being resistant and wait and see, we all need to collaborate and work as a team. Because the only way, yes, we have a budget cut, but we can increase revenue and make up for that loss. We can increase revenue by being creative. Like what Jacqueline mentioned, she's looking at, how can we improve how the widgets are creative? So our departments can work together on, well, that's a good marketing ploy, is to look at, our widgets will be unique, more efficient, better created, a better value than a competitor's widgets, as an example. And so if we all collaborate, all the departments as a team, then that's going to increase our revenue. We won't have to worry so much about loss of revenue, budget cuts.
So it sounds like you're already thinking in terms of the typical spectrum that we're looking at is actually looking towards that kinds of collaboration.
Right, being co-creative.
And you're just waiting for other people to join you in that space.
Right, and I agree that we need to have a written plan. Each department should have a written plan, because that we would avoid risk. It's better to write out a plan for each department, and then how each department can work together.
Okay. What is
With Marina.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we could cooperate with the COO and get legal behind us to make sure that there aren't any things that we're going to be that we're on board with OSHA and all of those other things, I think that we could really co-create and produce something really good here.
So we already have two people talking about collaborative or co-creation, actually, I should say. Co-creation
Collaborative was the right word. Yeah.
of planning. And the reason that I'm phrasing it as co-creation rather than collaborative. Collaborative is the word that we typically say. Is that there are some negative connotations to the word collaborator. Those of us who are old enough to remember that term being used. But there are also, this term is more expansive. Co-creation is really about opening, not just sitting down together and having a good conversation, but opening up your perspective. So the next, I do want to hear what each of you wants to say in terms of what you need to be able to move forward.
What I would need is for people to be willing to put aside their personal agendas.
Put aside personal agenda.
If we can work for what's good for the company, my trust would increase, but I'm not sure that that's the case.
Thank you, Maria. Ed?
Well, I can see where we might be able to save some money in the Salesforce side of things. However, we have a lot of competitors that are being, they're manufacturing their stuff overseas. It's less. It may not be as quality. May not be. So, we may be able to outsource some of our Salesforce. We may be able to contract with other people. But then again, we've got our current Salesforce, which has employment contracts, which I don't know if we can get out of or not. So I kind of agree with Maria that there may be some, and the marketing campaign. I mean, that's gonna we're gonna have to change the way we market. So I think those are things we can explore, but I can't just make a commitment that we're going to slash 100,000.
How would that affect Salesforce, the people that you work with?
If we just slash 100,000?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only Salesforce is really just, you've got training and payroll are your main expenses in Salesforce. So outside of marketing, but so you're that's usually they're motivated by opportunity to sell more and keeping high compensation.
Just got to cut your bottom 10%.
So if I just cut it, and that's what motivates them. We may see some of our most talented salespeople leave, go to the competition. So I could easily cut 100,000, but we may end up losing about 300,000 to 400,000 in profit by cutting 100,000 out of the budget. So
I'm hearing a spiraling effect.
So yeah,
self-defeating. So what would you like? I heard you refer back to Marina's plan for the coming up with co-creation of planning. Is that the main thing that you would focus on in terms of gaining trust, improving your ability to move further on this side of the scale?
I need to know more about that and get our sales force to get their input as to whether they think that would be effective and what those options might be.
You'd like them to be able to look at those kinds of things.
And we'd have to look at our current employment contracts and HR and say, okay, yeah, if we violate those and let these guys go, how many lawsuits are we going to look at receiving? Because you might spend an extra 100,000 in legal fees after we cut 100,000 in costs over here.
So it sounds to me like you're looking for more transparency.
Yeah.
And also assurances that in this process, you don't create more problems than you were trying to solve.
Or spend more money than we save.
Or spend more money than, not spend more money than.
That's what you didn't cover.
Okay.
I always had a plan.
John.
So to move my needle to the right there, I could see how co-creation of planning could benefit. I just would like some assurance that this isn't really a plot to destroy me.
You don't trust me?
Any of you.
So I'm hearing that you have a significant issue with trust to begin with,
Yes.
and you said that you were a resistor.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. And so that's a big deal. And what does trust look like to you?
Trust. Well, for instance, I'll take Jacqueline's example of fixing, maybe updating how we create the widgets. I see that because of the backstabbing ways of this court, I see that as an attack on me, saying we need to cut some of your people. We're gonna, instead of 5 stations to create a widget, we need to cut it down to 3 and get rid of 2 guys. What trust would look like to me is, let's look at keeping everybody employed and maybe spending less on the process itself. Or maybe can we cut some of the money out of the materials that we're using. So I don't want to see my department shrunk just because we're having a problem.
I'm sorry, which department were you?
Operations.
Operations, okay.
Okay. No reduction in force in operations. And I heard that from you too. No reduction in force in sales. Okay,
So that leads to HR.
that leads to HR.
Yeah, since everybody's contributing to this program, we're kind of in a wait and see mode, but I think what we need to do is fine tune the executive compensation manual and have better metrics of performance. So this is not just a compensation cutting plan, but if they don't meet the metrics, then yes, they may not participate in the profit sharing as in the past. But if they exceed the goals, they may get more. So this is a 2 carrot and stick, redefining performance objectives and creating incentives for each of the department heads.
So it sounds like you're already starting to think very creatively. What is it that you would need from your teammates in leadership to feel comfortable that you could move forward with that kind of idea?
Well, before I could quantify any of it for the dollar objective that was given to us, I'd need input from each of the departments, what those incentives would be.
What those incentives would be?
Yes.
And do you feel confident, or how do you feel, how high is your confidence that the input from each of those departments would be productive?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet?
Until
You're
I
still
get
at
more,
wait and
I'm
see.
still, at that point, I'm a skeptic until I gather more information.
So you need more information.
I need more information.
You need more information.
This
Okay.
is a little bit like the tail to the dog.
Right.
This is not the dog.
Okay. Yes, Kelly.
I was in the skeptic camp. I don't really know what I need in order to move out of skepticism into co-creation, because I have already done what was asked of me. And so I don't understand why y'all can't do it either.
What are you?
The CFO.
Okay, chief of that.
And can you see, is there anything you see getting in your way of being able to implement what the plan you came up with?
I mean, I might get some resistance from legal for dropping contracts or negotiating contracts, and I might get some guff from HR for offering some of my lower level accounting staff half-time positions or job shares, but I can do it.
You can do it.
I can do it.
make it happen. You're ready. All right. So you don't see any progress right at this time. Would more information help you move further, or would that not be?
Well, as the chief financial officer of the company, it's my job to look at all of the budgets for all of these, and perhaps I could get to co-creation if, like, Marina or whoever or Jacqueline came to me and said, where do you see the fat is? Where do you see there are opportunities to cut? And I could offer that, but I don't have any incentive to offer that right now, right?
So if you were to be engaged on your opinion on how
yes, maybe I need to be asked.
Asked.
No one has asked me for help. Maybe I need to feel valued.
Valued.
She's on a pay raise.
Done.
It's all about Benjamin's.
As I was thinking about it, there is a scientist who's a real pain in the ass. And I wouldn't mind losing him, and I wouldn't really mind the problem is he's 52 years old. And he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. And it would be very difficult to get rid of him without negotiating some sort of severance. Because he's a kind of like a lot of scientists, especially this guy, he thinks he knows everything and he's smarter than everybody. And and there's probably some contracts we could reduce, but the problem I have long term is that our whole marketing is based on being cutting edge widgets for the tech savvy entrepreneur. And if we lose that, we've kind of lost everything. So I'd have to have some assurances of the short term cost cutting, because HR can ebb and flow, but we have to have a commitment that when we write the ship that we're going to make up for it and then some. Otherwise, all of us around this room are going to be in trouble if we lose our reputation in the market for being cutting edge. And the other thing that in terms of what colleague at HR was talking about in terms of compensation, the problem with R&D is so darn hard to measure. So darn hard to quantify. So how does that work for my department? We have to somehow come up with benchmarks. I don't know what they would be.
So you'd like to be able to work with people who are good data trackers to do those benchmarking.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like you want assurances to maintain the reputation of the organization.
Or also,
quality.
The organization's going away if we don't.
Right, so that's where you're talked about short-term cost cutting, just to get through this tougher time right now with that potential of expanding later or getting back or recouping at least. Something like that. So cost cutting, looking at cost cutting in a realistic way, does that sound?
Sure.
So I guess that is my concern, borders on that. And that is that these ideas to save money, I would like to know what are the implications of that idea or proposal to other departments. For example, before we commit, Kelly's left the room, but whatever it is, she's got a plan. I want to see it and see if it's going to impact what I need to do to support it.
So that sounds like, again, transparency. Knowing what all the other plans are and how they would implicate your.
And if she can save $1 million and it's going to cost my department $100,000, let's do it.
Okay, so you're ready when you see the numbers that make sense.
Correct.
Jacqueline.
Well, I'm also in the same position as Dawn, because it's really hard to assess what the results of organization development are, because there's so many other things that are going on at the same time. So it's hard to say that what I'm doing is the only one that's having a particular impact. So that's a challenge for me. One of the things that I would want would be to figure out how it is that I gain the COO's trust, because I've actually talked to all of the people who are working on his team, and they have told me how rearranging things will make a difference. And it doesn't involve any of them losing their jobs. I mean, it's not often when you get a team of people who come to you and say, okay, we can rearrange things, and by the way, Joe and Bill are out the door. I mean, as a team, they wouldn't do that. So I need to figure out how to gain his trust. That would be one thing that I would need. In terms of cost cutting, interestingly, I have a lot of experience and background in organization development. So instead of bringing in people to do things for us, such as what you're doing currently, I could do a lot of that myself, which would cut a lot out of my budget.
And that's a good argument. So I'm hearing you say that you actually have already created some trust with Jonathan's team.
Yes. And
that now you're just worried, you're most concerned about creating that trust with Jonathan, and that may be a shared concern, that we're all interested in gaining each other's trust in this team.
I really feel as though Marina and I have formed a good partnership in terms of seeing how we can make a difference and being co-creators.
And you're already in that space.
Yeah.
Okay. So as this conversation has progressed, you said you were half over here in skeptic and half over here in experimenter. Do you feel any different now after hearing people speak?
Well, possibly I could put myself 3/4. Okay. But I still am, I still have some skepticism.
You still have a note of skepticism.
Our CEO.
Okay, Steve.
Well, cutting is not necessarily a bad thing. Bill Maher, with a successful comedy show for 25 years, was asked, how does he maintain the level of productivity and comedy and being funny that he does year after year? He says it's really simple. I have five people write all the jokes, and it's very easy to chart the laughing that goes on after the jokes by the sound. And he says every year, at the end of the year, of the 5 people, the guy who got the fewest laughs is gone. So we have a 20% cut every year.
Wow.
Every year, 20% is cut, and then we find someone else. And it doesn't matter how many jokes you got last year, the year before, the year before. If you don't get them this year, and you're a lone man, you're out. That's how he
Not
does it.
keeping up with time.
That's right. So I would want to see this organization have a compensation based more on productivity.
Compensation and productivity.
Not just the salespeople, but right throughout the organization. So I'm ready to cut salaries and benefits and have bonuses based upon how well we do.
How will you do? Gladys.
I think I agree with everybody has great points. I probably would do a combination of everything. Look at all the areas, like really bring everything up, where things are allocated, what is this department doing, or what is all the money. Look really at everything and assess really well if you are to cut from the budget, that you're not, hurting the company, but that you can make a healthy cut. But I would also focus on, okay, so how we can make up, this money, what other avenues, what other streams of income we can have to compensate, can we change,
What other streams?
Yeah, what other streams of income, in the sales force, if we're selling X item, can we sell something else so that we can bring, other avenues of income?
Okay, so we have run out of time. So we're going to debrief. Tell me how this process went for you. I'll start with you.
Well, I thought it was pretty good. I think in the real world, the CEO probably would assign somebody formally, whether you're an outside contractor or not, but somebody inside would work with you to orchestrate the whole thing, to brief the boss.
Okay. What did you think about this tool?
Good tool.
You like the tool?
I think, it's a good way of visualizing risk or confidence.
Confidence, yeah. So I have another copy of this tool that I'll give everybody.
What becomes obvious though in this whole thing is the one element that is preventing this team from really having good trust is the CEO.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I was going to tell you all that I'm tired of hearing all the whining. I'm just going to get rid of all of you and we'll get some people in here that can tolerate it. And you'll never get a good team when you have a leader that's doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
But it was fun.
And that's one of the things.
Ass kisser.
So unfortunately, this is just a role play, it's not a real company. But the goal is for this to become obvious to leadership that there's not good communication going on here. Put aside personal agendas, transparency. No, let's not spend more than we're going to save. Those are big ones. Gaining trust of colleagues. Why don't people trust each other? I mean, yeah, I told you it was Henry VIII's court, but the CEO needs to know that he's engendered distrust.
Well, and the CEO is concerned now because now you got people that are wanting to work together and all that, and that I'm threatened by that.
Right. It could be threatening to him.
I feel like maybe getting in the back room behind me and
Staging a palace coup.
that's right. Yeah.
So did the process help you feel a little bit more engaged? I don't know. I mean, those of you who do this kind of work, I would really love to hear your feedback.
I think go ahead, Jen.
No,
I think I like the process and I like the tool because it forces some self-awareness.
Yes.
It forces people to decide. I think the whole impact of talking about what it does to the culture, what's the impact of all of these, because we can have a compensation based on performance, but if it feels cutthroat to be here, it can just feel very tense and so there's that other aspect. So I think the culture piece, it's a balance.
I totally would not want to work for Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Well, that actually, there's a name for that. It's called stacked ranking, and it damn near destroyed GE.
Yeah, well.
Because what happens is everybody knows that somebody's going to get cut.
Be cut at some point.
And there isn't any effort to make anybody better. And as you get more and more people cut, the ones that are left become more and more cutthroat.
Mm-hmm. Well, they do. Okay, so here's another aspect of this chart that I didn't put up there, and it shows you the brain.
Yeah.
And so when we are in our self-protection mode, we are in the primitive brain. A lot of you OD people already know this, and many of you have already read it in other places too. But that is where we are least creative, are least able to think about what the future might look like. Or if we think about what the future might look like, it looks really, really scary instead of possibilities. We want to be able to see possibilities. So as we move out of that primitive brain, we move into the neocortex. If we get into the skeptic and wait and see, we're engaging our neocortex, which is where you do basic arithmetic. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 4, multiplication, division, subtraction. That's it. Maybe some long division, but it's still calculation arithmetic. That's very much by rote. We learned it when we were kids, right? In order to move out of the in order to think abstractly, to think about algebra, how do I solve a problem? You've got to move from the neocortex into the prefrontal cortex. So no matter how creative you guys are, you all are feeling pretty trusting right here because you know each other, you know me, we're having a good time, and you know that this isn't a real scenario. But people in this real position are shutting down their imagination because they're in a place of fear. So they're not getting up into their prefrontal cortex. Or if they do, they're just touching on it every once in a while. And mostly it's giving them scenarios they don't like, which kicks them back over here, right? And when you are in this space, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex completely. It may not shut down the neocortex. You can still get through your day, you can drive, you can do all the basic things you need to do, but you are not in an imaginative, creating place. And that is where human beings do their greatest work. And that is where people actually come up with solutions that might actually bring all of these people together. So this is a tool that helps explain that. And it's in a place of expansiveness. So I hope you enjoyed this. And
Very good.